everybody, how's it going? Another Tundra Talk as we are now less than 10 days away from the start of the 2022 season. It's Great Lakes Testing Round 1. It features the Bear 66 presented by Les Stump Ford, $3,066 going to the winner. And could it be this guy? He was pretty close last year. Dalton Zehr, welcome to the Tundra Talk. And let's hop right into last year's race at Wisconsin International Raceway before we get into everything that is Tundra and Dalton Zehr, because there's a lot of it.
Yeah,
that was, I think, one of the more memorable races that you've run in Tundra, because you started so far back in the field, ripped your way through, and were contending for the win late in that one. I know we had talked, qualifying wasn't what you expected, but was that the performance you were looking for on that particular day?
well, it was close. I mean, it was Casey was out front. We had a rough qualifying, but we had fast race cars, so was able to run up to a late race restart, which was timely for me, and got to start on the inside of Casey and didn't quite have enough for him at the end. And I think we ended up third, just getting a little sideways going for the win, and lost an extra spot. But really good race cars at Kaukauna. I'm looking forward to going back. It's one of my favorite tracks as a driver. And I feel like it's been too long since I won a race there. So I'm looking forward to going back there with Tundra. And also I plan on running the red, white, and blue there with part of my season schedule.
You have a distinct history of a lot of firsts or mosts in Tundra. And one of those things is the first win in a Tundra race at Wisconsin International Raceway when you were driving with Chase Motorsports back in 2014. And that was a newly formed team at the time. Take us through that day, because that really was a great start to what ended up eventually catapulting you to your first Tundra championship that season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember that day quite vividly. It was my first race for Chase Motorsports. And I had a tough time understanding my spotter that day. It was kind of funny. I got the lead, and I mean, I'm just blistering pace laps, and I had like half a straightaway lead, didn't even know it. It was just struggling with a little bit of communication that day, but we were able to win the race, and we're very excited to get that first Tundra win there. And I came back with Brevik a few years later with the 711 and had the track record for a while there. It was eventually broke, but that was pretty cool too. So, I mean, there's definitely some memorable moments at Kaukauna, and hopefully this year is another one.
Yeah, your Kaukauna resume itself in Tundra is so interesting, because last year's race, the race you mentioned where you were racing with Wayne Brevik in the 711, you broke the track record, ended up finishing second that day because something gave way on the very last lap. That was an odd one.
Yeah.
Maybe one that we don't remember so well, but another one that I thought was pretty interesting was when you brought the number 119 crate car to Kaukauna and put it in the dash. How did that happen?
You don't lift, you just stay in the throttle forever. That was exciting. I remember that race vividly as well. But I don't know how it happened, honestly. I mean, I didn't think it would have qualified in the dash or even been a, top 10 car with a crate motor at Kaukauna. But that opened my eyes, and it can be done. It can be done. It's just a different lap altogether.
Now, you were one of the guys that sort of blazed the trail for the crate car in Tundra, and a lot of that goes back to your time with Gene Coleman and that 119 team. And we got to go all the way back to the second ever race for Tundra, Live for Five at the time, 2011, Dallas Raceway Park. You came in and you won that. Now, at that point in your career, you were still relatively fresh and new on the scene. So what did it mean for you to be able to compete in a series that would eventually grow to be Tundra and the Dells and all the things that happen there now with super late model racing? You were kind of one of the trendsetters there, and really did it in in a crate car and then in all kinds of different cars. It didn't really matter. You found the fast way to go.
Yep. I remember that day. It was Tundra originally was going to be like a throwaway. You could throw away a race type deal. And I had missed the first one because I was still in Florida at the time. I was, still back and forth back then. And we made it to the second one, won that. And then all of a sudden, you're hooked, you're in it, and Gene was really a big promoter of the crate motor, still is. And wanted to show that it could run with supers. And it was a series that we could do that. So we ran crates as much as we could with Tundra and tried to show that it's a competitive motor that could run with supers and at the right weight. It's got to have that brake. But it was a fun experience. I finished second to Frank Cryer in points that year, I believe. I don't think that the throwaway race didn't end up happening. We never got a throwaway race. So it was a really strong year for me. But Tundra's been awesome. I loved running it. I mean, I almost ran every race for a while there. I was close to having the most. I think Steve Litchfield's the other guy that has had all of them, has been at every race. So, and then, so it's been a great series. It's always been, and I enjoy running it and continue to.
Now you're teaming up with John Beal this season. We talked to John and we talked about how your relationship has really flourished, and it's shown in the results, not just with yourself, but obviously with him and the championships that he's won. So we got his perspective on it. What's Dalton Zehr's perspective on the bond that is now formed at the Gildan Racing team?
Well, I'm excited. I mean, it's always about growth. I'm always about growing and trying to become better and faster and all that. And John's of the same, opinion. He's growing this racing operation, Gildan Racing, and we want to better ourselves and be better as a team. And I'm all for that. So I like that. And John and I worked well together. We continue to work well together. And it's because we have the same goals. I mean, you can understand a person's perspective way easier when you're on the same page. So it's been going really good, and it's been a great opportunity for me. And I look forward to continuing to forward the team.
And one of the things that working with John, I think has afforded you is the opportunity to make your own schedule, but also to add some bucket list races, like the Snowball Derby and things like that. Is that something that you would ever imagine you'd find your way to do? I mean, when you were just a younger racer back in 2011, when you were starting your super late model racing career, is this where you saw it going, or were you going to NASCAR?
I was going to NASCAR for sure. I mean, that was the plan, man. I mean, when you're, I got into supers when I was 14. I mean, what else can be on your mind? You're the next rock star. After racing supers for 17 years with that, 14-year-old starting point, you obviously come to reality, and I'm very fortunate. I feel like I'm doing the best thing that I could have. You know what I mean? You got guys in Cup that wish they were racing supers. This is where the best racing is in my mind, and I'm just glad I'm part of it. And as for running those bucket list races, I wasn't sure how I was going to end up running them races. I knew that I was going to, though, eventually. It was never, there's no race, no super late model race too big. You know what I mean? In my mind, it's just go, and learn from it, experience it, and then you'll be better for it, So I feel like when our cars are on, we can compete with anyone. And Ty Majeski, is a great example because he does compete with everyone in the country. And I feel like when we're right, we can beat him on his good day. So we just have to figure it out. We know we can win the races. We just have to have the right race car for the day.
So now that you're in this role, which is not a role that I really ever remember you being, and it's not to say that you weren't working on your race cars, but you were more of the driver. You know, you were racing for Gene or Chase or Wayne Brevick, and I know you had a lot of input and a lot of design into these race cars, but is it a bit different for you now being this crew chief / driver, or did we just not ever get to see that side really of Dalton Zehr that we get to see now?
I mean, maybe. I mean, it wasn't something. I mean, it was something I had to learn, you know, for sure. I mean, the crew chief role is something I had to learn, and also like the outside perspective of the car. You know, it's like I was adjusting cars from the inside, you know, where you could feel it and you could feel the change and experience it. But John and I have been able to communicate, you know, 95% of the time. We've gotten really we've gotten better at communicating as we've progressed. But we've never really had a page where we weren't understanding each other. But you know, and he could describe what the car was doing, and I could visually see it. So I mean, there was some learning experiences. I think I have improved as a driver as well, because when I'm in the car and I experience a bobble or a hop in the car and the guys tell me about it, and I feel like, oh, it's not a big deal, I can drive through it, and then I visually see it with another driver, it's, oh my God, we have got to fix that. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, there's half a tenth or a tenth that we're giving up at a track, you know what I mean, that it's happening at. And so, I mean, I feel like it's improved myself and John, obviously. And the crew chiefing thing has been fun. I mean, I always have said that this is a team sport. And when I go to the track and I crew chief, I don't feel like I'm missing out as a driver. You know, it's still a team effort. And I'm still at the racetrack racing in my mind. And I encourage people to go to the track and be involved with teams. With that being said, you know, go join a team, become a tire guy, become a chassis guy, become a shock guy. There's tons of positions to be filled. Just get involved.
You mentioned tire guy, chassis guy, shock guy. Mm-hmm. You brought your entire crew with you to go that. You know, you brought Caleb, you brought the whole team with you. Mm-hmm. What was it like for you to be able to step into this role, but to know that you had people that you've been relying on for so many years, whether it was with the Coleman car or even some of them came to Chase, and I know some of them helped you with Brevick. Just to have that backbone of a team with you, what did that do for you when you started?
I mean, John had his own team, and I had my team, and we have great people on both sides of the fence. And there was that process of like melding together, which was, you know, awkward. I mean, two people trying to do a job for a while there. But everybody, we all got better because of it, because I mean, we can all learn from each other. But what it made it much easier for me, because obviously it's like the guy that I'm relying on, that I listen to from the outside of the car, is standing there next to me, you know, at the beginning of all this, and he's describing what he's seeing, and I'm seeing it for the first time. So it made the transition a lot smoother and faster, I believe. So definitely, I mean, you can't thank your people enough. You know, it's like you could interview Gildan Racing for a week straight, you know what I mean? And, you know, you could talk to all my crew guys, and it's like you'd just be skimming the surface. Not that, you know, I mean, it's just but we're just one team. It goes across a bunch of teams. You know, it's the same for all of them. We could, you know, you could interview everybody. There's a lot of people involved, you know, in our team, and that makes the car great, you know.
So obviously, you know, you hooked up with these people a while ago. When I think back to Dalton Zehr's racing career, I go back, I can't remember when this was, but there was a time when I went down to, I think PRI might have still been in Orlando at the time.
I remember that.
Racing a dirt modified, and that was the first time I met you. And someone said, this Zehr kid, this is going to be a guy to watch. Yeah. So how did it get to that point, to the dirt modified point from your younger days, to eventually super late model racing And you're not a Florida guy, you're not a Southeast guy, you're a Wisconsin guy when it comes to racing. Wisconsin, Upper Michigan, kind of the same thing. How did it get there? What's the progression to bring you to where you are now? Because your story is obviously very, very unique.
Yeah, no, I started racing go-karts in Idaho when I was 7 years old. That's where I was born, was in Idaho. And I was, just wanted to be like dad. I mean, my dad raced supers. I wanted to race. My brother and sister both started racing. We all started the same year. And then we moved to Florida with my dad. And I raced Bandoleros there, raced against Matt Martin for 4 or 5 years or so, from Bandoleros into trucks, and then eventually supers. And then I think I was in supers for a year or so, and we hooked up with Circle Track Magazine before that, which got me into that dirt modified that you ran into me with, which was quite the experience. It's its own story altogether, my dirt world experience. But I did that for a speed weeks, and then the super late models was always dominant. Once you get into supers, it's hard to leave super late models. And then I did some road racing in Florida there for a while, and eventually came up to Wisconsin when I met Gene in Florida. Gene Coleman was wintering in Florida, and he'd hang out at our shop to drink coffee and just hang out. We didn't know who he was. And one day my dad was building my first super late, or my first new super late model. I had raced a beater for a couple of years to get the whoopses out of the system. And my dad was building me a new super late model, and Gene came in there and wanted us to he opened up his catalog, use these parts, you need this, you need that. And my dad took his advice and ordered all these parts. Well, Gene was impressed. He was excited about it. So he had a car shipped down, and that had a crate motor in it. And he says, I want you to race this, but you have to race in the ASA Southern Division, is where you have to race it if I'm going to leave it here at your shop. So that's what we did. We ended up, my new car that my dad built me became a backup car. And only ever raced it like one time that year, because it was the backup car to Gene Coleman's house car in the ASA Southern Division. And that's how I got hooked up with Gene. And pretty soon, Gene watches all these. At this time, Florida used to be rougher than it is now, even, I would say, where they had wrecks. I mean, you got good at missing wrecks because you didn't finish a race if you weren't. After that, we came up to Wisconsin because, you had 30 cars at a local race, and lots of great racing, and you could race 3 nights a week. So came up here and did like just a week or two up here. And then next thing you know, I'm driving Gene's house car up here. So after that, I mean, did that for a couple summers, and then I pretty much stopped going back to Florida. It was just stay up here, and I've always, originally from Idaho to Wisconsin, it's more of the same atmosphere, same type of people. Florida's a little bit different, I mean, it's great to visit, but Wisconsin's more like home.
Another place that you really made home, because I know you roomed with Caleb for a bit, was Upper Michigan, and in particular Norway Speedway, which is where we're going back this year. Obviously I love to talk about it because that place is so much fun when it breaks down to it. And I see the look in your face, because for a time there you were the villain of Norway Speedway, going up there and winning too much. Are you looking forward to going back? And you think everyone's going to be happy to see you?
I mean, they love to see you if you don't win. You know what I mean? That's the come on back, come race with us, but run third. You know what I mean? That's usually the it's not just Norway. That's just the general rule, right? Yeah, no, I'm excited to go back. I mean, I've done so many laps there. That track is, I mean, I'm mentally going through a lap as we talk, you know what I mean, of how I went around there. And, I mean, when I drove for Coleman, we would R&D new ideas and parts all the time in Norway. It was an hour north of us, and any new idea, napkin drawing that we could think of, we'd take up there and try and figure out if it was better or worse. So I did a lot of my learning at Norway Speedway for sure.
And you know what's interesting? You mentioned your napkin drawings and your R&D and things like that. And I am not shy about admitting this. If you look in the Tundra rule book, there are rules because of Daltons Zehr. I can point them all out, to be completely frank with you. But a lot of your time working with Gene was that, right? I mean, you were engineering parts. You guys were coming up with new ideas. You were looking at ways to really push racing forward. Is that something you still do? Is it something that's still kind of ticking in your mind? You know, where did that whole engineering background come for you?
You know, I mean, Gene taught me how to think outside the box in racing. You know, I mean, Gene Coleman, you know, he taught me, you know, to look at the car differently instead of, I mean, I grew up in racing, you know, listening to my dad and how this works, how that works. I was always that kid that asked how 1,000 times, you know, I mean, but rather than, you know, track bar down makes the car tight, more wedge makes the car tight, you know, just like the answers, you know, the answers to an adjustment. Gene taught me to understand why the answer is, all the math in between those two things, and how it cause and effect. So that taught me you know, you just look at it all different. And I mean, all of a sudden, every pickup point, every pivot point makes sense once you learn the math of how it works. So Gene taught me that. The napkin drawing stuff I loved. I mean, I love trying that new stuff. We don't do as much of it now. I mean, we're not set up for the R&D and the machining and the building and all that stuff. We're a little bit more trying to refine what we have. But I mean, you know, every once in a while, everybody gets a little too comfortable, so I have to hit them with a crazy idea, and they give me a hard time about it for a while, and we move on. But yeah, no, I still have the napkin drawings pop in my head, but we don't usually go after them.
Yeah, a lot of fun times rewriting that Tundra rule book every year.
Oh yeah, every year there was a new one. It was
no, look at it. Here's an air spring. What do you want to do with this thing? It's like, come on, Dalton, really?
That's still a great idea. I mean, it was 10 springs in one.
No, there you go. Hey, so you know, when we take a look back, and I mentioned this earlier, you know, we look at the Tundra record book, and you're all over it. You got the most wins, 11. In our events. I think we're coming up on 65. This one will be 65 or 64. I have to check to be certain, because we ran twin features one time, so it just depends how I want to count it. But really just looking at that, and you won at every single racetrack that we ran at. We ran at Norway, except for Slick. That was the one.
Yeah, I was going to say, that popped in my head.
We only went there twice, but Norway, Lacrosse, Jefferson, Wausau, Plover, Dells, obviously, Kaukauna. How were you and your team able to find ways to get that done? And you did it fast too, because it's not like you had to try at Wausau 6 times. You won the first time we went there. You didn't have to try at Plover a bunch of times. You won the first time we went there. Same thing with Kaukauna. So how were you guys always so prepared and ready to put that car in victory lane when you're going there? And you're racing against regulars too, right? People that do that racetrack.
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I mean, I would say I had the advantage of, you know, running a lot, and I had gone to each one of those tracks when the series was new to it. And I was obviously I was a big part of Tundra at the beginning. So, I mean, I was very familiar with Tundra's program. I was very familiar with the tracks program, and I was able to just be the guy that was both. You know, I had the Tundra background and the track background. I wasn't the local coming in. I wasn't the Tundra traveler seeing the track for the first time. You know, I had both advantages. So I would say that's probably why I was able to capitalize on those first wins. You know, that I guess that was the advantage I had at those races.
If you could look back at one racetrack that you felt was like just that one, probably still Slinger, that one that you just had to get over the hump? What racetrack was that?
Yeah, I mean, Wausau can throw you for a loop any day of the week. I mean, you got to be careful there. But it's definitely Slinger. You know, I mean, Slinger's been that track that I have never figured out. When I say that, I mean, we've had good runs. You know, I mean, I've ran top 5 at Slinger Nationals, I think twice. But it's just never been the car that, you know, you're the car to beat. You know what I mean? And until you have, I mean, you can run 5th and have the car to beat, you know, but until you have that car, it just doesn't feel like you've mastered the track.
And, you know, one of the things too about what we've seen out of you and about you, you know, being able to win those races and master those tracks is taking those wins and turning them into consistency and turning them into championships. You talked about that first year in 2011, trying to get that monkey off your back to that championship finally coming in 2014. How good did that feel?
It's great. I mean, championships can be weird. You know, they've been won with no wins. You can have great success and should have won it, and then have, you know, just one bad event. I mean, it's consistency. But also these days you can't afford not to perform extremely well at all the events. I mean, it's like it's getting tougher and tougher to win championships in all series. I mean, it's getting to the point where, like Tundra, for example, I don't know what last year's stats are, but I bet last year was, I mean, he probably averaged like what, 4th, you know, or something like that, you know. So, and I mean, to me, it seems like you got to be in the top 3 consistently. I mean, consistently, or you got to win and be top 5. You know what I mean? You got to win 2 races and be top 5 at all the others. So, I mean, that's no bad days, no bad days. So, I mean, my mindset towards the championship is go for the wins and then hope you don't have that bad day along the way.
Yeah, and I think Casey Johnson put it that way. It's just if you win them all, you win the championship. And you were probably the one that came the closest to doing that when you know you were ripping off those championships in 2014, 2015, and then again in 2017 driving for Wayne Brevik. So that would lead me to the next obvious question. It would be a team effort this year, but what is the chance that we see a combined Zehr-Beal Tundra Championship?
Well, I think your odds are pretty good. I mean, based upon stats alone, I mean, there's no reason why we can't do it. I guess John brought it up the other day. One of the years I won, he was 2nd in points. So if we were team driving that year, we'd have had a lockdown for sure. I mean, you know, but no, I would say the odds are pretty good. John has been 2nd twice, I believe. I've won it a few times and been 2nd a bunch. So just on averages alone, we should have a good chance at it. We just need to have our good days and being able to pick our best tracks, you know, I mean, should give us an even better chance.
And I was not at all surprised that you picked Kakon and Norway being the ones, but you also get the Dells, right? You get the closer. Is that?
I'm not sure. I thought John might have been at the Dells. It was between Wausau and Dells. We couldn't decide.
Okay, so you guys are, I think you're still a little up in the air on that one, but
yeah. Well,
I mean, I gotta feel like you've got shots at both of those too.
Yeah, I mean, Wausau is like not my favorite track, but I've always ran well there. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh gosh, you know, I mean, and then John did really well at the Dells for the Alive for 5 race. So I'm sure it's written on our schedule, but in my mind, it's still in the air on which one's going to which. So both good tracks for us.
I remember I was just looking through some pictures for Wausau, and there was that. It might have been the 2nd time we were there. I think it was 2016 because I was looking for Mackesy pictures, and your body got like ripped off. So if anybody ever wants to be able to tell the difference between a traditional roof 5-star body, ABC,
Yeah.
and a greenhouse. Go look at that Daltons Zehr from 2016. You can see right where the greenhouse split. If that were a traditional roof, would have seen the whole quarter panel.
Man, I remember that. I got sent to the back like 3 times that day, and the only thing holding the whole rear section on was the right side door. The whole rear was knocked loose, knocked off the car, and it was I was chasing the championship, and I was running just the crate that year. And the first 10 laps of the race, I'd always sink, and I'd end up being in the yellow because I was in panic mode, sinking. And then I'd end up going to the back and was always able to move forward as the race progressed. But man, that was a rough race for me. I had a lot of, almost nobody was upset with me because I had ran into everything. It was like, well, he was just out of control. You know what I mean? It was, at least I was consistent. But no, it was a rough day, but Wausau is still a good track for us.
I can remember someone coming to me after that race and complaining that there was no way, because I think he still ended up finishing pretty well. There was no way that a car that aerodynamically beat up could race that well. And I'm like, dude, it's Wausau. I mean, you could have the design of a dump truck here, and aerodynamics aren't going to do much. Now, some people argue with you on that, but
yeah, I agree. I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
That important. So,
no.
Dalton, I thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to seeing you run with us again at round 1 at Wisconsin International Raceway. And like I said, I gotta believe that you're going to be one of the guys to be watching out for. You're pretty confident. 66 laps. It's a little bit of a different look this time.
Yeah, I hope you're right, and I look forward to running the series with you guys. And I hope it's a good year, and we can do lots of interviews because we're running well.
Sounds great, folks. That's Dalton Zehr, 3-time Tundra champion, looking for a co-championship this year. It'd be his 4th. And it starts with Great Lakes testing round 1 at Wisconsin International Raceway. By the way, stick around after the race. Liquid Courage is going to be playing. We're going to have some fun. If you're a camping person, you can bring your camper and do some rough camping after at the track as well. That's open for you. And the main event for Tundra is the Bear 66, presented by Let's Dump Ford. $3,066, the most we've ever paid to a Tundra winner. We're excited to do it. Dalton, we'll see you there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Matt.
All right, we'll see all you there as well. Thanks for tuning in.